Hello, dreamer. I'll be your storyteller tonight. Like and subscribe for more bedtime stories and share in the comments where you're listening from. When I was still a student, life was not easy. My father was in the hospital, and at home, we desperately needed money. I had no choice. I had to find a job. That's how I ended up working the night shift at a Dollar Tree. It was November. Cold rain outside, and the wind pressed against the glass windows of the store. I thought the shift would be boring, just stacking items, and maybe a late-night customer or two. But I was wrong. That night, the clock hit 3 a.m. The entire store was drowned in silence, except for the faint buzzing of the fluorescent lights and the sound of rain outside. Then suddenly, from the back storage room, came a sound. Knock, knock, knock. My heart began to race. I thought maybe a coworker was trapped inside, or someone was playing a prank. I gathered my courage and slowly opened the door. The door creaked open, but there was no one inside. Only darkness and a chilling breeze brushing against my face. I turned on my flashlight, and then I froze. On the white wall was a fresh, bloody handprint, dark red blood, dripping slowly down the surface. My legs trembled. I stepped back and slammed the door shut. In that moment, I knew this wasn't just a knock. The next morning, I told a senior employee what had happened. He just sighed deeply and stared at me. Then he whispered, "So, you heard him too?" I asked. "Heard who?" He said, "The thief. The one who died in that very storage room. Years ago, they caught a man stealing. They locked him inside the stockroom, beaten bloody, left to die. Since then, every night at 3 a.m., he knocks on the door, trying to escape, but never getting out. After that night, I never worked the late shift alone again, because every night, the knocking returns, and so does the bloody handprint. So let me leave you with a warning. If you ever find yourself working the night shift at a Dollar Tree, and the clock strikes 3 a.m., do not go near the storage room, because someone might still be waiting for you. Someone who never made it out alive." It was around 1:30 in the morning when I pulled off the empty highway. I had been driving for hours, somewhere in the middle of Pennsylvania. The road was dark, silent, and there wasn't a single gas station or diner in sight. But then, I saw it. A faint, flickering green glow in the distance. As I got closer, I realized it was a Dollar Tree. The neon sign buzzed above the building, humming in the silence of the night. That was strange. Every Dollar Tree I'd ever been to closed by 10. What the hell was one doing open? At 1:30 a.m., the parking lot was completely empty. Not a single car, not even an employee's. Yet the automatic glass doors slid open for me the second I stepped closer, as if they'd been waiting. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Not the usual faint scent of cheap plastic and cleaning products, but something older, staler, like damp paper or mold. covered with a thin layer of bleach. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered every few seconds. Long aisles stretched out in perfect symmetry. Candy, seasonal decor, cleaning supplies. Everything looked ordinary, but it was too quiet. There was no music playing, no low hum of freezers in the back. And when I looked toward the register, I saw him, a cashier. He was pale, his skin almost waxy under the harsh lights. His face was locked into a smile that didn't move, like it had been carved there. And when I walked by, he spoke without even looking at me. "Store closes at 2. Don't be late." His voice was flat, empty, like he'd been saying the same line for years. I glanced at the wall behind him. There was a clock, but the hands weren't moving. They were stuck at 1:59. I thought maybe it was broken, until I noticed another clock, farther down the aisle, and another, and another. Every single clock in the store was stuck at the exact same time, 1:59. I tried to shake off the unease. Maybe I was just tired from the drive. Maybe this was some weird Dollar Tree that kept odd hours. I walked down the candy aisle. Packages of chocolate and gummy worms lined the shelves. But when I picked one up, I froze. The expiration date didn't make sense. It wasn't a year or a month. It simply read, "Expires at 2 a.m. I put it back. I moved on to the toys. Plastic dolls, action figures, toy cars. But the dolls, their glassy eyes weren't looking straight ahead like they should. They were following me. I took a step left. Their eyes shifted. I took a step right. They followed. I walked quickly down another aisle, my footsteps echoing too loudly. I swear the aisles weren't that long before. They stretched farther than they should, rows upon rows of repeating shelves, and the products were wrong. Cans without labels, boxes with no writing, just plain packaging, as if the store had forgotten what it was supposed to sell. My breathing quickened. I glanced at the clocks again. Still 1:59. Suddenly a voice crackled over the intercom. A calm, monotone announcement. "Attention shoppers. It is almost closing time. Please prepare to check out." My blood ran cold. The store was empty. There was no one here, except me. The knocking came again. But this time, it didn't stop. It grew louder, more frantic. Bang, bang, bang. And then, the door slowly creaked open. Darkness spilled out from the storeroom, swallowing the fluorescent light. And from that black void, figures began to emerge. At first, I thought they were people. But their movements were wrong. Their limbs bent at angles they shouldn't. Their faces were pale and stretched, their mouths wide and silent. One of them stepped into the light, and I realized with horror I had seen his face before on a missing poster. More figures emerged. Men, women, even children. All in the same faded Dollar Tree aprons. Their eyes were hollow, their smiles twisted, like the cashier at the front. They shuffled toward me, slowly, as if being dragged by invisible strings. And behind them, the cashier finally moved. His head turned toward me, his neck cracking. And in that same flat tone, he whispered, "Everything costs $1. but you'll pay with your life. I ran down the aisle, past the balloons with screaming faces, past the dolls whose eyes still followed me, past the shelves of blank products. The store distorted around me. Every aisle I turned into looked the same. Endless. Repeating. No matter where I went, the glass doors stayed the same distance away. I could never reach them. The announcement crackled again. Attention shoppers. It is now 2 a.m. The store is closing. The lights went out. The store was plunged into total darkness. All I could hear were the footsteps. Dozens of them. Closing in. Something grabbed my arm in the dark. Cold. Bony. I screamed and pulled away. Another hand grabbed my neck. Another. My leg. They dragged me down the aisle, toward the open storeroom, that endless black void that waited for me. I kicked. I fought. I clawed, but their grip was inhuman. And the last thing I saw before I was pulled into the darkness was the cashier standing above me, still smiling. The next morning, drivers on that highway reported seeing an abandoned car in the Dollar Tree parking lot. But when police arrived, and there was no Dollar Tree, just an empty lot. Cracked pavement, overgrown weeds. The only thing they found was a single torn receipt. Lying on the ground, it read, Dollar Tree, thank you for your purchase, Store closed at 2 a.m. It was just after 1 a.m. when the streets outside Dollar Tree fell completely silent. The parking lot lights buzzed faintly, moths swarming around the yellow glow. Inside, fluorescent bulbs hummed above endless aisles of cheap plastic toys, paper plates, and cleaning supplies. The store wasn't supposed to feel threatening, but something about being inside a Dollar Tree after midnight, something about the stillness, the emptiness, it made every sound echo like it didn't belong. My name is Ethan, and I worked night shifts at a Dollar Tree in a quiet Midwestern town. Most of the time, nights were boring. Clean up the aisles, stock the shelves, wait for morning. But there was one thing, one detail about that store that I can never forget. The landline, the one old phone behind the counter, the phone that shouldn't have been working anymore, and the phone that rang every single night. It started on a Tuesday. I was restocking candy near the register when the bell rang. Not the soft ding of the front door, not the squeak of a cart, but the sharp, metallic ring of the landline. I froze. Nobody had used that landline in years. It wasn't even plugged into a visible wall jack anymore. The company had switched to headsets and cell lines ages ago. Still, it rang. I walked behind the counter, staring at the phone. It was an ugly beige box with yellowed buttons, the kind that looked straight out of the 90s. The little red light blinked with each shrill sound. I hesitated, then picked it up. Dollar Tree. This is Ethan? Nothing. Just silence. Not even static. I waited, my ear pressed against the receiver. Finally, I whispered, "Hello?" And that's when I heard it, a faint, raspy breath, and a whisper so quiet I almost missed it. "Don't let it ring again." The next night I thought maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe some random electrical glitch had triggered the phone. I didn't mention it to my manager. She already thought night shifts made me paranoid. But when 1:15 a.m. came round, it happened again. The bell. So loud. It made me drop the box of snacks I was shelving. This time, I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, frozen, staring at it. It rang 5 times before stopping. I exhaled in relief. But as soon as I stepped away, ring. The sound was so sharp it felt like it was stabbing into my ears. I picked it up, hand shaking. Again, silence. Then, breathing. But this time words, clearer, angrier. Why did you answer? You weren't supposed to answer. I slammed the receiver down so hard it echoed through the empty store. My heart was pounding. For the rest of the week, I refused to pick up the phone. Every night, without fail, 1:15 a.m., the ringing started. Sometimes one ring, sometimes it wouldn't stop for minutes at a time. I tried to distract myself. I'd hum songs, play music on my own phone, even step outside for air. But no matter what, the sound cut through everything. It wasn't just loud, it was wrong. Like it wasn't just noise, but something that wanted my attention. By now, I dreaded going into work. Every night was the same routine. 1:15. The bell. Always the bell. But something was changing. The calls were longer. If I ignored it, the phone would just keep ringing. And when I finally picked up, the voice on the other end wasn't always whispers. Sometimes it cried. Sometimes it begged. Sometimes it screamed so loudly it made my ear ache. One night, the voice said my name. The breaking point. It was Friday night. 1:15 came and the ringing started again. But this time I'd had enough. I grabbed the phone on the first ring and shouted, "Who are you?
Get out now!"
What do you want?" Silence. Then, a voice calm and cold. "I want you to look behind you." My stomach turned to ice. Slowly, I lowered the receiver and turned, and for a split second, I saw her. A woman standing at the end of the aisle, wearing a Dollar Tree uniform. Her chest soaked in blood. Her mouth wide open in a scream I couldn't hear. And then, she was gone. The next morning, I went straight to the manager and begged to see the overnight CCTV footage. Reluctantly, she let me. I scrubbed through the footage of 1:15 a.m. The bell ringing was faintly audible through the camera. Muck, and then my stomach lurched. On the grainy black and white screen, I saw myself behind the counter, phone pressed to my ear, and behind me, clear as day, a woman standing in the aisle. But in the footage, I didn't react. I didn't turn. I didn't see her. It was like she was only visible on camera. I should have quit. I should have walked away and never looked back. But curiosity, or maybe something darker, kept me there. The final night started like all the others. Silence. Stillness. And then, ring. I answered immediately. "What do you want from me?" I demanded more. The voice whispered back, "Help me finish the call." Before I could respond, the phone line erupted in static. But underneath it, I could hear it. The faint sound of Danielle's last moments. Her panicked voice begging the 911 operator to send help. Her scream. The gunshot. I dropped the receiver in horror, but the ringing didn't stop. The phone on the counter rang again, and then another one rang. From from the back office, then another, from the break room, from the aisles. Phones that weren't even supposed to exist. Everywhere I turned, landline bells were shrieking. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside my head. I screamed, and then everything went dark. When I woke up, it was morning. Sunlight was pouring through the windows. The store was quiet, but the phone, the original beige landline behind the counter, was off the hook. And when I picked it up, there was a new sound on the line, a voice. My voice. Please, pick up the phone. It was almost 1 a.m. when the fluorescent lights inside the Dollar Tree began to hum louder than usual. I know because I was there. If you've ever been inside a Dollar Tree late at night, you'll understand the strange emptiness. The aisles look the same as during the day, but somehow at night they feel longer furrow. The silence is broken only by the occasional crackle of the intercom, or the clatter of a restocking cart echoing way too loudly. That night I was working the overnight inventory shift. It was just me and one other employee, Jessica. We had a small store, about 5 aisles, 2 checkout counters, and one tiny break room at the back. Everything felt normal at first, but then I noticed something odd in aisle 7. Now, technically, we didn't even have an aisle 7. Our Dollar Tree only went up to aisle 6. But when I looked toward the far right side of the store that night, there it was. A narrow aisle with a sign above it. 7. I blinked hard, told myself I was just tired. Maybe it was a reflection in the glass door. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks. But then Jessica noticed it too. "Hey, when did we add another aisle?" she asked. Her voice sounded nervous, like she wanted me to tell her it was just a joke. But I couldn't, because I was staring right at it too. And right there, sitting on the middle shelf, under that glowing 7 sign, was a porcelain doll. It was pale, cracked in places, dressed in a cheap little blue dress with lace trim. Its glass eyes reflected the fluorescent lights in a way that made it look like they were glowing. And worst of all, it was smiling. A wide, unsettling grin that looked painted on by someone who had never actually seen a child smile before. At first, we laughed it off. Dollar Tree sometimes gets random stock shipments. Maybe a leftover from Halloween. Maybe some cheap toy from overseas. But something about the doll felt wrong. We decided to ignore it. Keep working. But that night, every time I glanced up, I swore the doll was facing a different direction. At 1:30 a.m., while Jessica was in the back, I swear I heard something. It wasn't the usual hum of the lights or the squeak of a cart. It was the sound of tiny porcelain feet tapping against tile floor. I froze. And when I turned my head back toward aisle 7, the doll was gone. Jessica didn't believe me when I told her. She rolled her eyes, said I was just imagining things. But the next night, she came running out of the break room, pale as a ghost. "You're not gonna believe this," she whispered, holding up her phone. She had been checking the CCTV feeds. She rewound the footage and showed me, and there it was, on camera, clear as day. The doll, crawling off the shelf, its stiff limbs bending at impossible angles as it climbed down, landed on the tile, and walked, no, jerked, its way down the aisle. At one point, it even stopped, turned its head toward the camera and smiled. We didn't know what to do. Call the cops? Tell the manager? Who would believe us? The following week, things got worse. Every morning when the store opened, the doll was back on the same shelf in aisle 7. Even if we moved it, even if we locked it in the back, even if we threw it out into the dumpster. By the next shift, it was always back. Same spot, same smile, and customers started to notice. One woman brought the doll to the front counter and slammed it down. "I'm never shopping here again," she hissed. "This thing followed me to my car." She stormed out before we could ask questions. Another time, a little boy begged his mom to buy it. She refused, but when they left the store, she screamed in the parking lot. The doll was sitting in their shopping cart even though she had never put it there. That's when the manager, Mr. Harris, decided to just get rid of it. He drove the doll out 20 miles and tossed it in a landfill. But the next night, it was back on the shelf in aisle 7. Things escalated fast. Jessica disappeared first. She was working a late shift when I heard her scream from aisle 7. By the time I got there, she was gone. No sign of her. The shelves were empty except for the doll, sitting on the floor facing the break room. I called the police. They searched everywhere. Cameras showed nothing. It was like she had never existed. Mr. Harris vanished next. He'd come in after hours to handle the doll situation. His car was still in the lot the next morning. The cameras went static around 1 a.m. When the feed returned, the doll was sitting behind the cash register. After that, I refused to work nights. I begged for day shifts, swapped with anyone I could. But the nightmare followed me because one night, at exactly 1:33 a.m., my home phone rang. When I answered, all I heard was the sound of tiny porcelain feet tapping against tile. And then, faintly, a child's whisper. "Come back to aisle 7. The store was shut down a month later. Officially, or it was for staffing shortages. But I know the truth. They could close the building, tear it down, burn it to the ground if they wanted to. But that doll, whatever it was, it would find another aisle, another shelf, another Dollar Tree. And if you ever find yourself shopping late at night, pay attention. If you see an aisle that doesn't belong, an aisle marked with a number 7, turn around. Don't go in. Don't even look at what's on the shelf. Because if you do, that smiling porcelain face might be the last thing you ever see.